I remember coming home one day before Alan and I were ever dating, telling my parents, I'm gonna marry Alan Cothran one day.
I had been the guy who, won the awards and graduated at the top of the class, and she was the homecoming queen, and we were gonna kind of be that couple in Anderson. And I mean, not in a pretentious way, but it almost felt like a foregone conclusion that that's what would happen.
We were married really for, our first 2 years were great. Really, it was just as sweet and golden as it could be.
At 23 years old, I go to see the doctor, leave with a cancer diagnosis, and just kind of reeling. Had no concept of how to deal with it, and we were just kind of at a loss.
He had felt a lot of weight of, like, I need to be strong for my family. I don't need to let on that I'm fearful.
I remember this really sick thought that at least now I'll get to use painkillers because I've got this cancer diagnosis. It was kind of this weird silver lining to the cloud. I certainly needed medication through that, but just kind of continued to use it and to claim that I needed it well past when I did. And at first, it wasn't that big a deal. I mean, I could take 4 to 6 pills a day, and it worked fine for a couple of years until it didn't.
He became very withdrawn, kind of isolated himself. His sleeping patterns changed.
A lot of people are noticing, and man, all I got was people's attempts to help. Like, hey, you don't seem yourself. That's how it began. You don't seem yourself. What can we do to help you? What's wrong? Are you depressed? Are you sick? Jill becomes aware, okay, all this stuff is now adding up to, well, he's been using progressively more painkillers for the last several years, and that's the reason that all this is happening.
Okay, great. Like, we can deal with this. Like, I'm here for you. Like, let's do what we need to do to get help.
When you're in active addiction, your drug of choice quits working at some point, and so you then get really desperate to, I gotta get back, to the effects that I was having.
And he said, I have started drinking, and I think I need some help. And so we did various things to try to be a team and get the family on board.
2009 to 2011 is basically just a series of, well, let's try this, it didn't work. Let's try this, it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work was because I just wasn't willing.
A lot of my story was tied up in, we can do this together and I can help you. I can somewhat fix this and help control this.
It started with a short dual diagnosis treatment thing where I stayed for like 5 nights.
It's all fixed. I'm fixed, it's fixed.
It didn't take long to relapse out of that, so we tried an outpatient thing.
I'm better. I've learned so much about myself. I know the tools.
It didn't take long for me to feel more hopeless than I'd felt going in.
And here we were. We had 2 little boys and had everything under control.
I lied and conned and blame assigned and would not receive the help.
Here we go again. We're starting again. A lot of time passed with this up and down, up and down. And then there was one particular night, about 2:30 in the morning, the bathroom light came on.
I'd been drinking all day long, and remember that night just thinking if I could just go to sleep, it'd be okay. I had that thought, and I remembered that Jill had some anxiety medicine somewhere. So on top of a liter of liquor that I'd drunk that day, I had dumped 58 anxiety pills.
I could not get expression or words or movement out of him. So I called his parents and I woke them up in the middle of the night. And I said, listen, something really, really is wrong with Alan. So we got him to the hospital. At 7 a.m. that morning, his dad came out of the emergency room and he said, you're not gonna like this. And he said he has overdosed on pills and alcohol. And I said, okay. I said, I'm gonna go home now and be there when the kids wake up. And that's what I did.
Her telling me I couldn't move back into the home is the kindest thing anybody's ever done for me. She'd done everything she could do.
During this time that we had been apart, I released Alan to the Lord. And I let go of trying to control him or the situation or the pills.
Because if there was ever gray for me to apply my addict mentality and manipulate, I was gonna try to operate in that, and she pulled that right off the table. About a week after I got out of ICU, 3 friends who we'd been in home group with for years came to the house, and they were amazing. They challenged me and encouraged me and said all the things that needed to be said. And at the end of that night, I remember the guy that was the hardest on me said, you need to take a walk. And so I took a walk that night, and I was praying and asking God to asking him if he was real, asking him to do something. And what I wanted was this kind of the secret to not relapsing and using drugs again. And as clearly as I've ever heard God speak, I heard, get a job. And it was so not what I was expecting. I agreed to okay, maybe that is the Lord. Let me think about who I know and which phone calls I can make and what relationship I haven't wrecked. And it was just this sense of, no, that's not it. And go find something and do it differently than you've ever done it before. They hired me at $11 an hour. I cleaned up stuff in the warehouse and went out into people's homes. I was riding around Anderson in a big box truck. Everything that I had been as the, Hannah grad who's gonna come back to Anderson, having married the homecoming queen, doing all these things, the white picket fence story, all of that was just gone. And I had to come to terms with that. A month into my new job, I am driving from a recovery meeting at noon that day. This 74-year-old pulls out in front of me, and I broke my leg in the wreck. And the next thing I know, I'm in a bed, a recovery room, not the ER. And I look up and I'm on a bag. I didn't know what was in it. I couldn't read anything, but I knew from the feeling. And I remember the irony of I didn't die in the wreck, and that drug right there is gonna kill me. When I left the hospital, I got taken to mine and Jill's home.
And I had to really dig deep to serve him and love him and care for him. I had to do everything for him. And I'm gonna tell you, I didn't feel like doing everything for him.
So they put 2 plates and 13 pins. I have to stay on the pain meds. It was not manageable without it. The doctor said you can't manage it without it. And something in the 2.5 months of clean time that I'd had clicked that I didn't have to give the drugs the kind of control over me that I'd given them. And 4 weeks passed, and I remember pouring the last of the pills down the toilet and being sad because I loved them in a really sick sort of way. But it was time to be done.
Forgiveness is a big part of my story, and it was certainly a process. Even though it was not the same Alan I had married, I made a vow to honor him and to love him for better and for worse. I not only made that vow to Alan, but I made that vow to God.
I began to see some redemption of some things that I'd given away. I think that gave me more hope that maybe this can work out. Maybe I can go through the pain from the wreck and the pain from the surgery and get out the other side of this. But it did teach me that it takes time. I mean, we can't just flip years of circumstances or crises or whatever. We can't just flip those off and change our reaction to things that remind us of that.
It was a daily choice. I choose to love him, even though I don't feel it. I choose to forgive him, even though I don't want to. And even though I chose that yesterday and I still don't feel any forgiveness towards him, it was a daily choosing.
You know, a lot of things that I have learned about the character and nature of God have been proven to me through my story with Jill.
What is so cool about our story is that we get to see God's redemption and restoration on this side of eternity. We've gotten glimpses of that, and we have gotten to live that.
So if I get a pulpit, what I'm gonna preach is the person that thinks that they can't be redeemed. Like, I've seen it all get redeemed. Like, you can't convince me that it's not true, right? Like, I don't have to argue the intellectual side of it because I've seen it, I'm sitting in it. I'm married to it, I'm raising it. Like, it's all, like, I don't have to, it's not an intellectual argument anymore. I've experienced it.